Do you enjoy flushing your good, hard-earned money down the drain? If you do, then this is not the right podcast for you. Because in today's episode, we're going to be going over the top mistakes that we see home sellers make that cost them thousands and thousands.
Love it. Let's dig into that. My name is Robert.
My name is Chad.
This is Intellectually, the show where we teach you how to hold us, the professionals in real estate, more accountable. Let's get it going. Good to go.
Cool. Well, we got some things to talk about.
We
today.
do. We promised. Unless everybody switched to the next episode after your opening.
It depends. If you like flushing your money down the drain, then I guess we're not talking to those people anymore. So, well, the first and foremost, the one thing that the mistake that we see sellers making, right, is not having a plan.
Do we want to list everything out, or do we want to go one by one?
Just go.
I like it.
One by
so
one.
Not having a plan.
So
you know I'm a
essentially-
planner, so I love this first one.
Sellers, you need to have a clear direction. You need to understand why you're selling it. We touched on a little bit on this on our last podcast or a few podcast episodes ago. The importance of understanding why you're selling. You know, is it a lifestyle decision? Is it a professional decision? So very important to also understand why you're selling your home, because if you have uncertain motivation, if you don't know if this is a need or a want, it's going to make the path to decision making much, much more cloudy.
Yeah.
It's not going to make you have more informed, clear decision making.
Yeah.
When you do that.
Regularly, I love sellers when I go to visit their property. I love seeing that they have like a objective of some form, and it doesn't have to be laid out. It doesn't have to be clear. They don't need to know every step of what's going on, but they have to have some kind of ambition of what they're trying to achieve and when they want to achieve it by, right? We always say back at like anything we're trying to get done, if you have a dedicated goal and a time frame that are measurable, then you actually have an accountable plan. We always say like the scenario of a person that wants to lose weight. If this person came to us and said, I want to lose 60 pounds soon, you're going to be like, okay. Or if that person came to you and said, I want to lose weight by July 30th, you're going to be like, okay. But the second that person goes, I want to lose 60 pounds by July 30th, people start taking it seriously. There's more accountability. So when it comes to that plan, I come out to these individuals' properties. If I can at least see from them, they're like, we want to have this property sold by this time frame, and this is what we want to achieve that purpose for. There's more measurability. There's more accountability behind it. And then me as the professional, I can lay down the avenues much clearer, and we can all work together on what we need to get done by that time frame. So when you say a plan, I love the mentality there. It doesn't have to be clearly laid out, but it has to be like something along the lines of like, why are you doing this? You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, come up with your bottom line of what you want your net proceeds to look like, right? Understand exactly what kind of timeline you need to be under, because again, these are all things that are going to not only help you create the framework around the decisions that you make based off selling your home. You know, it impacts your expectations. Yep. And also it influences, you know, your negotiations tactics and strategies.
Yep.
Right? Because you have, you know, information is knowledge, right? Everything that you know and how to and understand about your situation, you know what you want. So you know where you can let go in some areas, and you know some areas that are very important to you.
I like it. So the idea is, how does this save you money, and where is this costing people money, like slipping through the cracks? It's crazy that if you don't have a sound plan on how you at least want to execute the major variables, things are going to start slipping through. For example, if you're not sound on, for example, like you said, what you want to sell it for, bottom price, numbers are going to start to wiggle. You're not going to be as confident during negotiations. Your agent might not be confident during negotiations. And it's just going to be a fray, right?
Yeah, to your point, same thing with your timeline. If you don't have a set and determined timeline and you're just throwing it on the market and you're just hoping and waiting and letting it sit, you know, we know the implications that has.
Yep.
We also know once a property goes stale or a listing goes stale, you typically tend not to get that price you're asking for. But more importantly, you got your holding costs that you're still paying.
And to your point on another side, I often get sellers that don't have an end game timeline of the certain date that they need to get everything done for until they start to realize it down the road. And we start making last second decisions. We start entertaining offers that would be better where we just a little bit more sound with our reactive time frame. We, during the transaction, because we're hustling to get things going, we're less confident in our negotiation power. For example, say somebody's like, we're at the end of their time frame. I waited too long. I wasn't clear about when this needed to be sold. And these buyers have this issue, and this issue that they're trying to negotiate. They're going to have more power, right, in the negotiation process because you're trying to get these things done. So back to the point, even though it sounds a little chaotic, get your end game, what you want completed and when you want it completed by is going to give all parties in the transaction a more sound foundation to execute on. And finally, it's going to be easier for you to hold people accountable because you clearly laid out what needs to be done and when it needs to be done by. You know, those absolutes can make it so you have more pertinence in what your desires are for the money you're paying the professionals to do. Title company, this needs to be done by this certain time. Lender, I need to have this completed and these are the things that are coming up. Real estate agent, trust me, you really want to mess up your real estate agent. Don't be clean on your time frame and don't be clean on your goals. If you are clear on those, your real estate agent's going to have so much of an easier time when it comes to negotiations, educating you, counseling you, and of course, coordinating and holding all the other professionals accountable in that transaction. And I've seen thousands of dollars here, there, slip through the cracks when an agent that isn't setting expectations that they need end game level plans, you know, they're missing $1,000 here, they're missing $1,000 there. It happens on the regular. So pretty cool.
Which kind of brings me into my next point, number 2. You kind of elaborated on this a little bit, but waiting until the last minute.
Yeah.
Waiting until the last minute to find and connect with real estate professionals. Waiting until the last minute to really analyze and determine your property's condition and deferred maintenance. Mm-hmm. And also, something that's very much overlooked is just organizing the simple documents that you need to have ready to go for the sale of your property. All of these things not being done properly or in line with another either in a ways costs you money or creates delays, which in turn then cost you money.
Yeah. And it's also to the other point where if you are waiting till the last second, now you said organizing the documents, it's not hard to organize documents. There's not many required. Your agency that you hire on to list your property is going to predominantly help you sign and organize those documents. But
one good point I'd like to make is, yes, they can help you understanding which one, but
you still got to get it done.
You could have bought your home 15 years ago and not even remember some of these things, or got a permitted work done 10 years ago and not remember who did that. Those are going to be important pieces of information that you should be having ready.
Yeah.
Handily available.
Yep. And it comes to the point where if you're waiting to the last second, I would have an opposing viewpoint. And this goes for sellers and buyers. Regularly, we'll see buyers and sellers come to us 6 months prior to actually wanting to make an execution. And they're like, oh, we're 6 months out. We're not serious at all. And I'm like, man, 6 months, you're right in the heat of it. You're actually starting to get your toes wet. I would take that 6 month mark very, very seriously. You're not too ahead of the game. In fact, you're right on time. And like I said, that's when it comes to buyers and sellers. You're going to lose, once again, so much money having to react and make last second decisions versus proactively analyzing the situation, how you want to go about these areas, and then properly choosing, multiple decisions that have derived from that proactiveness. And it also comes to it like when you're running around trying to get all these individuals together, real estate agent, lender, title, you're going to possibly choose the first one you get, might not be the best one. You're probably going to choose the first options you get, might not be the cheapest ones, right? So I would argue if you're thinking 6 months too soon, you're wrong. Absolutely wrong. 6 months is right when you should really start seriously thinking about doing that. Talk to a lender if you're a buyer, get an analysis on what you can afford. Talk to a real estate agent if you're a seller. Is that still going?
The battery.
Oh, the battery? Oh, got to plug it in. Talk to a real estate agent if you're a seller and get an analysis on the property, right? 6 months prior to going live, because then that agent can come in and be like, hey, did you know if you paint this for $300, you can add the value of $2,000 to your house? Hey, did you know if you do this and this to your kitchen for $500, you can add the value of, $3,000 to your kitchen, right? Those things would not be able to be executed on if you're waiting until the last second to get
Or
it
in the
all done.
vice versa.
Yeah.
Hey, your HVAC unit's 20 years old, right?
Yeah.
That might cut $10,000-$15,000 off the top of your
you need help?
profits. Right? Because what do buyers always do? They factor in the condition of the home. And these things matter. So it's very wise to get informed, understand your property, know what buyers in the market are looking for, and again, just be prepared. And that's whether you decide to fix these issues. That's whether you decide to leave them up for negotiation within the contract or within the agreement. There's many different ways to go about it. But again, the idea that you knew and you were expecting it and you were able to anticipate it only helps you out in the long run.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What do we got for the third one in there?
Well, the third one is not understanding the true cost of selling. And when we talk about that, we're really talking about understanding your closing costs. Exactly what costs are you going to be responsible for to actually close and get the property sold.
Yeah. And we're just to be clear, you're not talking about, because any person's going to have the ability to understand that according to RESPA, they're going to have those numbers covered for them, but that's within 3 to 5 days of the actual closing. You're saying before you even go on the market, get an idea of what's coming out of pocket, right?
Yeah, I mean, because you're on the market, if you have a mortgage balance, how much that's going to have to be. You can get a rough estimate of what your lender and title fees are going to be, any attorney fees if they're necessary.
One of the biggest things that I find is I go to a listing appointment with my seller and they're like, we want to sell it for this much. I'm like, okay, cool. My fee's this. You're likely to have to negotiate a fee like this on the opposing side. You're going to have title fees, prorated taxes. A lot of people forget about that. Negotiation fees, which are very, very real, which can sometimes end up being $3,000 after an inspection. You're going to have extracurricular fees here and there. And if I'm forgetting any, but we break it down. We do all the math. And, one of the things I love doing is, hey, you hire me on and we sell it for this price. This is what you're likely to walk away home with, right? And it puts a daunting reality, right? You get that math done and now you got a number. You're like, this is going to be in my pocket. And sometimes you're like, that's awesome. But sometimes you're like, crap, maybe like this scenario isn't realistic, especially with people that have mortgages or accrued interest on their mortgage. I regularly have to, go to them and they're like, we want to sell it for this price. And I'm like, hey, mathematically that doesn't work because you're going to be in the negative by $1,000. But, that daunting reality really helps them reevaluate their decision making. And I'm glad I can catch them prior to another agent coming in there, not doing the math, not setting those expectations, going under contract. And this poor individual finds out, which I've seen happen in other transactions I don't represent, the hard way that they owe money, which is crazy. But
and I love that's one thing that we really focus on, again, is doing the math for them. And it's not the idea. Yes, there are plenty of people out there that know there's going to be closing costs. But there's not many people out there that understand, broken down line by line, exactly what everything should cost.
Yeah, and of course it is an estimate, but the reality is like we can break it down to the $100 level pretty accurately, provided there's no surprise liens or extra costs on the property or the title that we didn't anticipate or were told about. But we can traditionally get out there and tell you within $100, maybe $1,000 range, what you're going to go home with as a seller that sold your home. And one of the things that Chad and I always tell our team members that we're training in sales is, if you want to close a client down, never give them options and never make them do math. I know the options part sounds creepy. You're like, give me options, but if you're hiring a professional, we should be able to give you the best route, correct? So there should be no options. But the other thing is we should be good enough to be able to do the math for our clients so we can be transparent enough and they can look us in the eye and be like, okay, so the actual value I'm getting from you is I've paid this much for that value, right? And I think that's a very healthy, like you said, way to be transparent with our clients after we propose this level of execution. So, yeah.
So that's a great point.
Yeah.
Another true cost of selling that a lot of people overlook is what it costs during when your house is listed. Your lifestyle during when it's going listed. You got to think. You got a family, you got dogs, you have a whole life, and you're about to uproot and take it somewhere else, right? Mm-hmm. For someone else to come in here. Well, what's going to happen? You need to show the property. You need to open up times. People are going to be walking through your property. You can't have your dogs there. You know, you can't have your kids running around, right?
You
have to be able to plan.
Go home from work, yep.
Mm-hmm. Do you have to put things in storage? Do you
that
have
is the other pain point, yeah.
You know, all of these different things that you're going to have to accommodate your lifestyle when you're going to show the home because that's just part of the business, right? Now, you can control that to some extent, but at the same time,
it is a cool thing to recognize an individual that is like, I'm absolutely going to sell this house and I'm going to do it by this time frame, can save and make money by being like, that's why I'm moving all my stuff out. We're moving out. We're executing on this. It needs to be sold. I actually see them make more money than the individual is like, I'm not moving my stuff out. And then you got this place that's lived in. It's less desirable to a potential buyer, and they end up offering lower or negotiating or something like that. And those individuals on the last second term are trying to move their stuff out quickly, and we find that they end up giving their stuff away because they can't move it in time. They're doing an estate sale, taking cheap rip-off deals to get the stuff out of the way reactively, versus those individuals, like we said, are proactive with a plan, with an understanding of what they want to get done, and they get their stuff out of the house. They're like, we're doing this. We're committing to it. And then the house is more presentable. They've, proactively spent the money that they calculated in. But that was a rabbit hole coming from the other area.
You've been doing a wonderful job leading us into...
Have I done?
Yes, well, because the next, number 4...
Can I make one more point?
Yes, please.
Yeah, one of the biggest costs that people don't realize is you're going to be dropping a couple thousand, maybe more, on just moving, right? Moving truck, moving time frames, maybe damaging materials or losing materials that you can't move. So
Hotels,
that's a huge cost as well.
All of these things that come with moving.
Absolutely. We had a client a couple months ago. They hired us after a transaction failed, and they had already moved into the new home. So they were paying 2 mortgages. The previous sale fell through. I don't know whose fault it was. I didn't dig into it too much, but because maybe things weren't proactively executed, accountabilities weren't set. They moved all their stuff out, and now these are extracurricular costs, like you've talked about. They're now in this new location. They spent all this money, so they can't undo it. They're paying 2 mortgages, rent and a mortgage. It's pretty chaotic.
I can only imagine the emotional distress that.
Yeah.
That
when I got there, they were pretty like, ugh, kill me now.
But again, going into our 4th and final costly mistake is not having a marketing strategy.
Okay.
And going into the point that you were making, one of the options or one of the things that I have listed on here is home not list ready. Again, if your house is cluttered, if your house is dirty, if your house has got, dead bushes in the front, right? Dead trees, just trash all in your front yard. There's poor curb appeal. These things affect the way that buyers look at your home.
Yep.
Right? When we talk about marketing your property, we're not just talking about where we're putting it online. What social media is it on? Is it on the MLS? No, we look at it as how can you position your property best within the market to essentially get the most exposure and get that premium dollar for it.
Yeah. There's a cool understanding that we train our team members, and I'll get to it in a second. But I do first want to lay down the 3 areas for understanding not having a marketing strategy. First area, if you're trying to sell the home on your own, by all means, definitely have a marketing strategy. Look at ways, don't just go to ChatGPT and take that answer for it. Look at different mentalities and ways that professionals are marketing it. If you are hiring a professional to list the property for you, such as a real estate agent to list it, dig into how they plan to market the property. I still say to this day, marketing is one of the minor variables with the technology that a real estate agent brings to you. The 3 major values that a real estate agent brings to you is counseling, coordinating, and negotiating, those 3 skill sets. Marketing is a luxury that they add on that you don't have to do, but arguably, if you hire on that real estate agent and he can't speak to the why behind the marketing, and he just instead or she tells you what the marketing is, then I might recommend passing them on. So to your point,
So can you actually expand on that? Give an
Yeah.
example of, hey, Mr. Seller,
Yeah.
or I'm the seller, or you give me a what,
yeah,
and then give me the why behind
yeah.
it.
So you could be like on the idea, agent comes in and they go, we have several different social media platforms that we will advertise your house. We have these cool looking videos that wrap through, do these cool spins in the property and make your property look really cool. Here's a picture of me walking through in a tux and I'm showing off the areas. Or you have the other agents that are like, quick run through of the property. All those things are cool ideas, but if you ask them why they're doing it, if they can't answer the actual why and the return is beneficial to the sale of your property, I'd be a little standoffish on that point. So you're just like, okay, cool. So you have these cool sway around videos. What does that do? What kind of why do you particularly do that for your property? 90% of the times, unfortunately, the agent's going to be like, well, because, that's just how it should be done.
Another great, very simple example I like is, why do you want me to go live on or coming soon on Thursday rather than Tuesday?
Yeah, you mean
know what I
coming
mean?
soon on Tuesday
Or
live on
yeah,
Friday,
live on Thursday and coming soon on Tuesday. Why can't we just go coming soon now and then in 3 weeks
just throw it up on the
know?
market? So yeah, I would argue all the things I previously went over are the basics. They should be done because they hit a norm. But arguably, they're not going to reap the return that you would hire a why marketer, right? The marketer should look at your property. They should look at your clientele in the area, and they should look at how your property fixates towards that clientele's wants and needs, right? So say you are in Olivet, which is a area in St. Louis, which is maybe has a majority that are getting to the age where they might not want an upstairs. So I would come to a multi-level property and I would make sure to primarily amplify the fact that the master bedroom is on the main floor. So that way, if people that don't want that upstairs because the master bedroom is upstairs and they don't want to climb them, they're going to see that specific marketing for them and say, oh, cool, I was nervous, but now I see the specific marketing that's showing the master bedroom is on the main floor. I can still send the relatives, I could still send the kids, or I could still send the grandkids upstairs to sleep, and I have my main floor, corrected. That, in my eyes, is a huge game changer when it comes to marketing strategy. There might be other areas towards how you try to outreach to your buyers. We have plus $1 million properties, plus $700,000 properties. We like to reach out to the businesses in the area and just get to know them on a personal level, offer our counseling and our task management when it would come to, say, if they wanted to, drum roll, bring in somebody from out of town to work there. We're like, hey, we can handle the real estate part for you. If you guys want to bring somebody in, we have a house. We'll handle the whole transaction for you from, A to B, A to Z kind of idea, and just make more of that lucrative, luxurious kind of valuation for the businesses. So that's one extracurricular we do. There's another thing that we like to do that we've seen turns in we have quick little shorts that go through the utilitarian aspects of the property. You know, we have one property on Nicole in which the owner has spent a lot of time digging out and putting a clean out valve underground all the way into the back creek, which is a lot better than other homeowners that would look at a pool and be like, I don't want to open up that can of worm, because they think this, you know, I'm going to have to roll a hose across the yard just to clean it out, just to do
And
that.
then they're in their backyard siphoning out
With their
pool water in their
spitting
backyard.
it up.
I say that because I had to do that.
Yeah. So obviously we're going to fixate on the marketing of the luxury of turn this valve and you have it cleaned out. You're done. This pool is no longer negative. It's only positive.
So you're really So you really just, you know, touched on exposing the property to as many potential buyers, connecting those potential buyers with the property, and again, in some ways, conforming.
Well, it's the certain clientele you're connecting with.
Yes, the certain clientele, of course.
Yeah. I'll regularly have sellers be like, why aren't we advertising this? I'm like, it's on there, but the research I've done on your area, if anything, that might scare them away.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Very important pieces of the strategy. Yeah. But there is, and the one last piece.
Yeah. Sure, it's not the last one, but
not the last one, but yet the most influential part of all of this, because at the end of the day, none of this matters if what is not correct.
Price. Yeah.
Exactly.
So how to value your property.
Right.
And it encompasses everything we talked about plus more, right? You're going to decrease in value if the property's lived in. You're going to increase in value if the property has conformity to its area, right? The big thing that we find when valuing a property, it goes back to when that seller needs to have it sold by. If they're like, I'm going to test out the market, that's going to increase the value of your property, right? If you need it sold quickly, it's going to decrease the value of your property. We have, and I've had to correct several buyers lately, we have so many buyers believe that it is no longer a seller's market in St. Louis, because they see this encompassing idea that places like Texas, Florida, Tennessee, maybe like specifically Charleston or a couple areas in Arizona, these fluctuated, and of course California, these fluctuated in population so much that they shot up prices on the property. And now these properties are not valued that high. They're sitting on the market forever. Buyers aren't buying, and they're bringing these prices down. And these are, once again, the majority population. So they make our buyers think, oh, I don't have a seller's market. And they think they got to lower the price. They got to sell the property quickly. They, you know, if they're not getting the return. So I regularly have to tell my sellers, hey, it's okay if it takes a little bit longer, because in old school real estate, you know, your property's not selling within that first day. Mm-hmm. It's actually kind of crazy if you think about it, to list a multi-$100,000 product and be like, sold next day. You're like, is that healthy? So it's actually, in my eyes, more healthy to be proactive and be willing to spend maybe a month, you know, really finding that clean buyer, being perspective on all the buyers, testing out the market and things like that, and maybe inching that price up a little bit higher. I know so many real estate agents would challenge me on that, but I'd love to put them on the spot and ask why, right? They'd be like, well, I don't know, you want more bids, right? But I always see these properties sell the first day, and the first thing I would do is be like, oh crap, I could have listed this for more, huh? Yeah. You know. But why did I go into that? There's so many factors. One of the biggest factors that I'm seeing is people believe in St. Louis and other Midwest regions that it's still not a seller's market, that we don't have clean, educated, and ambitious buyers, and we do, especially if you have a product the public wants, right? If you have that abnormal product that's dirty, needs renovated, or has extracurricular activities going on it, yeah, it's going to obviously take longer because you're looking for particular buyers. But if you have, you know, your traditional $200,000 to $300,000 picket fence suburban home, it's going to be hard to keep it on the market, and you can still get that hefty price on it. So don't be discouraged when you see a good valuation, but also just make sure you vet your agent on that. Yeah.
So we've talked about importance of having a clear direction.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about not procrastinating and not waiting till the last minute to do minor and major things. We talked about the importance of understanding the true cost of selling, and then
Valuation.
say it again.
The valuation, how to value your property.
And then again, having a proper selling strategy, evaluating your property.
I don't know if I've ever brought this up, but I do want to make this point. If a real estate agent, and this is crazy for me to say, I hope I don't get in trouble for this, but I want to be challenged if somebody's going to try and hold me accountable. If a real estate agent advises that you get an appraiser out to your property to understand the value, I don't think that agent's qualified to sell your property. Because an appraisal is still an opinion of value. He's not a wizard that's coming in and being like, the future predicts. No, he's still a human being that went to the same classes, has the same experience as that real estate agent should. And he's using the same materials that agent has to value the property. So I've seen in the past agents advise their clients to hire an appraiser to get an estimate of value. Doesn't make any sense. That agents should be fully qualified to understand what that property will sell for and what that appraiser, if it comes to necessary by the lender during the transaction, will appraise it for.
Now, I'm about to pull everything down.
And I'll challenge one other idea.
But I'm going to challenge you on that.
Yeah. Before you challenge me, people's first challenge would be like, okay, so what if that appraiser comes in during the transaction and you're wrong about the price? Go to any appraiser when they're valuing your property before you put it on the market and ask them, is the next appraiser during that closing going to be the same? And that appraiser will be like, I don't know.
No, I mean, this
is my opinion.
You have a great point.
Yeah.
Right? You know, but at the end of the day, the argument I would make is the bank is not taking your CMA. The buyer's lender is not taking your CMA.
I'm not saying if the bank requires an appraisal, get the appraisal. I'm
regardless.
saying talking about going live. Prior to going live on the market, if an agent advises that you need to get a CMA to value the property before he lists it for you.
You mean appraisal?
Yeah, sorry. Get an appraisal before a professional licensed appraiser to come out to get the value of the property. I wouldn't hire that agent.
I agree. I do think it's depending on where you're at, what market you're in. I'm also on your side of this. I think it's an unnecessary step, but at the same time, again, I think from a seller's point of view, and again, depending on what market you're in, again, you're going to have buyers that are going to come in that are going to have a lender that do require an appraisal.
And at that time,
the timing I completely understand, right?
Yeah.
If you're the seller, there's no point in you getting
a professional
appraiser. Let the buyer do it.
Let the
buyer go and get their own appraisal done.
Well, what I'm saying is, like, I've seen past clients say that they worked with a past agent and they're like, yeah, we paid for an appraisal because the agent advised us to, because we needed a better understanding on how much the property should be listed for.
How do you feel about pre-listing inspections?
Pre-listing inspections, well, like getting a professional out there to
hey, mister, I'm the seller. I'm selling my property. I want to get an inspection done on my property, so I know every single thing that's wrong with my house.
Absolutely not my field. You know, I'll gladly say, hey, get the professional out there to analyze the physical opportunities of the property. Not my field. But once again, I'm in real estate, right? I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a contractor. I'm a market valuer, right? I can evaluate the market, understand what's going to happen in 2, 3, 5 years, so I'm not surprised, understand how to prepare for that. And most importantly, an individual that has my license should understand what that property will and should sell for on the market. So if that individual has to advise you to get an appraiser because they can't figure out what to sell your property for or what to list your property for, don't spend $400 on an appraiser. Get a new real estate agent.
I agree.
No offense.
That makes sense.
And it's crazy because, you know, there's agents that do it on the regular and they'll combat me on it all the time. Doesn't make any sense. I can't find any justification for it. No offense to the appraiser, but I would argue statistically the real estate agent should understand what the property is going to sell for quicker or better than the appraiser, right? Because the appraiser's aesthetically not marketing the product. The agent is marketing the product. So if an appraiser comes along and says the property will sell for this much, the agent then doesn't have to market. It doesn't, none of it makes any sense why you would do that. And there's another reason that you shouldn't get an appraiser prior. Here's my opinion, right? Now, this isn't a universal rule of thumb. There might be purposes to get an appraiser, but just for estimate of value. The other thing is appraisers are going to change, no offense, they're going to change their valuation of the property based off other variables that weren't involved prior to going under contract.
So you're telling me every single offer that I've submitted isn't exactly perfect for exactly what the home.
So what Chad is, so what Chad is talking about is regularly when you sell a property during a transaction, you get this magic right on the money number from the appraiser. You're like, I sold the property for $332, and the appraiser's like, guess what? It values at exactly $332. You're like, okay, so there's no variables affecting this. I would argue there's 3 variables that affect an appraiser's opinion. You can disagree with me. You can't agree with me. It's up to you. But an appraiser is going to be ethical and go with market value. This product has sold, give or take, for this value, and that's what he's going to do. And he's going to uphold the integrity, or she's going to uphold the integrity of their license. The other things that they aren't going to necessarily tell you, but they're going to have to hone into, is if a lender is one of your major sources of work, right? An appraiser, I would argue, gets most of their hires from a lender trying to value a property before they send the loan. You're not going to want to jeopardize too many deals, or those lenders are going to stop hiring you. Right. So that's why it's right on the money. If it's off by $1,000 because you truly believe it, that lender is going to be like, don't hire Carol. Sorry, Carol's listening, but don't hire this person named Carol anymore because they're willing to jeopardize the deal by $1,000 if they feel it that way. So you get this appraiser out there. Well, I guess I'll say the third one. You get the first one, market value, integrity of their license. Second one, pacifying and entertaining the deal that the lender wants to push through. Third one is you got a very realistic, competent buyer with affordability making a realistic offer on a property that should affect your decision making, right? So that being said, not absolute your decision making, but affect it. That being said, if you have those 3 variables, 2 of them are missing if you have an appraiser come out prior to going under contract just to see the value of your property. So I've regularly seen appraisers come out, value the property, and then we sell it for $15,000 more. And a new appraiser comes back out hired by the lender and says, hey, it's right on the money, $15,000 more. And we're like, oh, that's not what the previous appraiser said, because we're missing those 2 variables, right? And it could be the opposing way too. We had a property that we represented the buyer on, and they were listing the property, and they're like, hey, this property appraises for this much money, and we offer $20,000 less, right? And they closed with us, right? So you got to ask yourself, like, how much weight does an appraisal actually hold? How much weight does any licensed professional hold? They shouldn't hold anything more than an opinion, right? And you need to be good, proactive, not reactive enough to vet them, hold them accountable, and maybe call out their BS, if you will. So, but yeah.
So, it really brings us to our ultimate point is successful home sales. They don't happen by accident.
No.
Right? Even the best homes that you can imagine on the market, if they're not positioned well, they are going to underperform. There's no doubt about that. Understanding your goals, knowing your home's value, preparing financially, addressing your property condition concerns, organizing your documents, just being prepared, right, is going to take you realistically to that next level when it comes to selling your home. It really gets you the absolute most and premium price for the home that you're looking to get rid of.
There is one other thing I just want to add before we close this thought down. I don't want to accidentally imply that if you get offers the second day at listing price, you mispriced your property, because the selling of a home isn't like a traditional retail item. If your agent advises that you sell it for this price and they say we're going to get multiple offers after the first showing in 3 days that you're going to sift through, that agent is also thinking of you on behalf of the other things that have and hold value. And that's the contingencies and the eligibility of that buyer in general, right? If you list too high and you get that buyer, you sacrifice other buyers willing to make offers that have less contingencies, less risk, and maybe even are paying in cash, right? So I'm not saying it's a bad thing when you get an offer the next day, but it is something to consider. It is something to consider. I don't know what that is.
Trademark that? It's
Yeah.
ESPN.
Uh-oh. Well, there you go. You just sourced it. But
that one, if no one listening knows what that is, then
there's some buyer on there like, crap, I better.
what is ESPN? I
Yeah,
guess
or
it's
something.
not. It's because I had to. Yeah, it's fine.
But I guess all I'm saying is just be conscious of how you want your house sold, right? If you care more about an eligible buyer and you want your options to choose through them, yeah, you might want to get an attractive price. But if you're like, I'm good, I'm confident my agent's going to negotiate and be proactive with everything, it might be strategic to rate it a little bit higher and cut out some of those pointless buyers, if you will. You know. Cool. That's everything I got. You got anything? What time are we on?
We're at 41.
It's
41.
2 hours past Hannah's
Oh, yeah, baby.
go time.
I've been told that we need to shorten our podcasts. So all of you that made it to 41 minutes, please let us know.
They didn't like that idea when I brought it to them.
Yeah. No, here's what comment a star if you think the podcast is the perfect amount of time. So that way, if we don't get any stars, we'll be like, it's too long because nobody made it to the 41 minute. But cool. That's all I got, guys. This was Intellectually, the podcast where we teach you how to hold us professionals in real estate accountable. My name's Robert.
I'm Chadwick.
Chadwick. You guys have a wonderful afternoon. See ya.
See ya.